Hey guys, it's Chris from...
You can insert your band name here.
Yeah, I'm kind of bandless at the moment, but if you got a project that needs vocals, I'll probably be on that like stink on shit. So I wanted to make this tutorial because I don't feel like there's a lot offered on the internet and vocal tutorials about how to progress in screaming after you get the basics down. So that's why I wanted to make this advanced tutorial. So here are some things to consider. Number one, this is going to take some time. You know, when you first start to get good at something, the rate at which you get better is pretty high, because there's a lot for you to discover. But as you get better at it, the rate at which you get better slows down. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about in here takes a lot of practice, and it's not going to come quickly. So just keep that in mind and be patient as you progress. Second thing, training your voice is a lot like working out. Things are gonna get sore as you start to try new things, and it's okay. So don't get too worried, but also don't push yourself too hard. That soreness, as you get better and more comfortable with different techniques, will diminish and eventually go away. So just with hard practice, good practice, dedication, and consistency, you're gonna get better at this, trust me. Alright, moving on. The number one thing that you can do to improve your vocals, and it's something that no one ever really talks about, is listening. People always say that you're probably going to sound like who you listen to, and to an extent, that's totally true. So make sure that you listen to people who practice good technique and who embody a vocal style that you want to adapt. One thing to keep in mind here is that the style of vocals that you do and listen to most often will probably limit, to an extent, your ability to do different types of vocals. I listen to a lot of deathcore, and that's the kind of vocals that I do most often. But when you do that, you develop a certain muscle memory, which can make it a little bit more difficult to learn new things, like the harsh yelling often used in a lot of metalcore stuff. That's hard for me. It always comes out a little too gurgly or too gritty for me. So just keep that in mind. To diversify your listening and your practice. Now, speaking of listening, another really important thing to do is to listen to yourself. Record yourself all the time. I mean, geez, I probably have like 200 or something, like little sound files in my phone or something. So you can track your progress and see what works and what doesn't. Because your voice sounds a lot different in your head than it does outside of it, because everything, reverberates in here. So it sounds maybe a little better or worse, who knows, inside here than it does out there. So it gives you a better perspective to listen and to really make adjustments where you need to. Second important thing, warm up. I had to talk about it. Everyone stresses it all the time. A lot of great warm-ups are available from Melissa Cross's Zen of Screaming, or just look up some vocal exercises on the internet. They're not too hard to find. But it is really important. Your body's not designed to make these kinds of noises, and you kind of got to get your voice in the right state with the right preparation to do it. So make sure to drink a lot of water, and not just right before you do it either. Hydration starts like 24 hours beforehand. So make sure you stay constantly hydrated. Make sure you do, breathing exercises, and I'll probably link those, in the description somewhere. And just practice regular singing, and you don't have to necessarily do it in the form of scales or anything, but just make sure you get your voice warmed up to the point where you feel comfortable going into screaming. Alright, now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. I want to make a little disclaimer. This is how I do my vocals. It doesn't mean you have to do them that way. And going forward in this tutorial, I'm going to assume you already know how to make that essential overtone for screaming, and that you just want to get better at it. Alright, so we're going to start from the bottom up, and that means we're talking about gutturals. So the most important things that you can do to shape the tone of your gutturals is your mouth and your tongue positioning. With my mouth, I prefer to keep a tight O like that. A lot of people do it differently. Most people probably do it this way. I think Duerr uses his lips out like that. But yeah, so I find that at, the smaller the hole, usually it's easier to get a lower sound. And combining that with your tongue positioning, you know, you can do a couple different things. Phil Bozeman, I think, talks about this in one of his tutorials, how to get kind of like that toilet bowl sound. You know, regularly you would have your tongue up to the roof of your mouth, you know, somewhere in the middle. So, you know, if you're doing a guttural, you could be like, but Phil puts his a little closer and maybe rolled up against his top teeth, and you'll get a little more overtone that way. So, you know, it sound like, so it gets a little bit more gurgly that way. Another thing that you can consider that no one really talks about is neck positioning. It may sound weird, but I find that, you know, the further I bring my neck in like this, or at least my chin, the darker the tone is. It's not quite as bright. So, you know, I'll see if you can notice a difference, but it goes like, so there's a little bit of difference there, and you can probably get lower tones a little bit easier that way. When you're doing gutturals, it's okay to feel the sound of the overtone more from your throat. For most other screams, I try to feel the overtone more in my face area. Kind of keeps tension off your throat that way. So yeah, that's gutturals. Alright, next up is lows. So anyone can do kind of a low, kind of gurgly sound, but the key to making it sound really big and powerful is to get your own voice behind it and adding more depth to it. And there's a couple tricks to it. Ben Duerr has a great explanation on this, which I'll link to in the description. But he thinks of his lows as kind of more of an open mouth guttural. And the key to this, I think, is also, you know, probably tongue positioning, at least to kind of round out the tone. So, you know, you have your regular guttural, and then you kind of open your mouth just a little bit more. And the key to really round this out is to keep your tongue more to the back of your mouth, I think. That kind of creates a more open area for the scream to go through. So it sounds, you know, something like this, and I'll move, you know, the tongue from down to all the way back. So it goes like this. Alright, well that was awkward. My phone died at the end of that clip, but I'm going to keep rolling. So it's important when you're doing lows to remember to kind of relax your throat. You can get away with more, I guess, relaxation than you can with gutturals. Just be sure not to do it too much. You can get an interesting tone by doing that, and I think I'll actually try it here. It goes like, and it's pretty cool, and if you can do that consistently, go for it. But it kind of wrecks my voice after a while. But yeah, and another thing to consider when you're doing this, lows at least, is you should probably try to feel the overtone more in your face area, or at least, you know, more so than you do with gutturals. Alright, I'm going to skip mids and I'm going to highs, and you'll see why in a little bit. Highs aren't really my strong suit, but these are the things that help me out. So I try to relax as much as I possibly can, at least in my throat area when I do this. The more tension I have there, the more constrained the scream sounds, and, you know, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't sound good. It's just bad. So another thing to consider is to try to get the overtone entirely in your face area. And Melissa Cross talks about this technique in the Zen of Screaming as over the pencil. You know, if you have a pencil between your teeth, you should feel the overtone, or at least the resonance of the scream, pretty much entirely over that pencil or in your face area. It just helps you keep tension off your throat, and yeah, it's probably a better way to go about thinking of it. Another thing to consider is your tongue positioning. I typically use my tongue just kind of, you know, free floating in my mouth. Other people push it down. You can do either one, or, you know, whatever you want, depending on what tone you're going for. So yeah, here's my high. Just yeah, they're not that great. So, you know, either keep your tongue down, free floating, or, you know, in a ripple shape, whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's how I go about it. Alright, now finally mids. I'm probably not going to do a demonstration for this one, but you can think of mids as either a lower high or a higher low. So you can borrow whatever mouth or tongue technique you want from either one, and just change the pitch. That's how I'd probably do it, depending on what you're going for. Alright, bonus round, I'm going to talk about the tunnel throat technique. You can do it as any pitch scream you want, guttural, low, high, whatever. And it's pretty much all about your tongue positioning, and I'll link to a couple videos for it. But just keep in mind, this takes a lot of practice. It's not going to come easily just, right off the bat. It takes a lot of practice, experimentation. Just don't give up. You can do it. But yeah, it's pretty much about your tongue positioning. So you can put it, against the bottom of your teeth or just near the bottom of your teeth, and roll it up and experiment, how close you need it to the bottom of your teeth or how much you roll it up depending on the pitch. It all kind of varies, so it's something that you really need to experiment with. But it can be done as a low, just or as more of like a mid-range or a high, just so it's just another way to add a different texture over whatever scream you want. And that pretty much concludes the tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any particular questions regarding a certain technique or whatever, just feel free to post it in the comments or message me. I'd be happy to answer it or make a video about it. Feel free to check out my covers, and like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, have a good one. Happy trails, fellas.